180 nautical miles off Greenland in the GIUK Gap, a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon shadows a Russian Beret-class nuclear submarine when the Arctic suddenly turns hostile. A brutal 100-knot wind shear hits the aircraft, knocking its APY-10 radar offline for 12 painful seconds. In that brief silence, two Russian Su-35 flankers burst out of the mist, slicing dangerously close to the P-8A's nose and filling the cockpit with electronic noise. Moscow believes it has just blinded NATO, opening a quiet path for its undersea giant to slip into the Atlantic. From the Russian point of view, the Americans are backing off. But as the flankers move in with growing confidence, one question changes everything. Is the P-8A really the target, or has Moscow just stepped into a strategic trap it cannot even see? Over the next 15 minutes, you are about to witness the high-stakes chess match that reshaped Arctic power and proved that in the GIUK Gap, the most dangerous threats are often the ones that never make a sound. The line has vanished, the sensors are screaming, and the contest for the Atlantic begins now. Modern conflict is no longer decided only by what appears on a map. It is fought on acoustic waterfall displays, radar warning receivers, and tactical screens where every second matters. In the frozen emptiness of the GIUK Gap, victory does not always go to the side that acts first. It often goes to the side that stays composed the longest. This is not a random encounter. It is a strategic duel between NATO's interconnected combat network and one of Russia's most advanced nuclear assets. The P-8A Poseidon, callsign Foxtrot 7, is far more than a maritime patrol aircraft. It is a mobile sensor hub, the nerve center of an invisible web designed to turn the Atlantic Gateway into a dead end for hostile submarines. Beneath the rough water, the SOSUS grid, a billion-dollar network of seabed microphones, remains constantly alert. Every mechanical click, every cooling pump, every low rhythmic vibration from a Russian Beret-class submarine is logged into a digital library built over decades. The Poseidon's mission is to serve as the precision instrument, dropping high-fidelity sonobuoys to confirm the exact position and identity of the giant moving below. Hidden in the Atlantic haze, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer waits in total electronic silence, MCON Phase 3. Its Spy-6 radar is dark, its radios are quiet. Its crew is waiting for a single burst of targeting data from the Poseidon to turn the situation into a tactical nightmare for the other side. This is cold discipline at its sharpest, a silent hunter waiting for the network to hand it the target. Moscow, however, has its own plan. The Beret-class submarine is a crown jewel of the Northern Fleet, carrying enough Bulava missiles to change the balance of power in a single move. While it could theoretically remain in safer waters, the Kremlin pushes it into the GIUK Gap for one reason: to test the fence. Russia wants to know whether it can still enter the deep Atlantic unnoticed. To shield that strategic asset, two Su-35 flanker E-fighters are sent in as gray zone enforcers. Their job is not necessarily to fire. Their job is to intimidate, pressure, and force the P-8A off station. They roar past the American cockpit at unsafe distance, tearing through the air and saturating the spectrum with electronic clutter from their Urbis-E radars. It is psychological pressure by design. Moscow wants NATO to make an impossible choice: pull back and leave the gateway open, or stay in place and risk a mid-air incident with global consequences. Below the surface, the contest is just as hostile. Russian autonomous underwater vehicles move like acoustic decoys, trying to blur the Beret's signature and confuse NATO's sonar picture. Every move is carefully calculated. The Russians believe that if they can pressure the Poseidon and disrupt its radar picture, the US Navy will lose awareness and be forced to disengage. What they do not understand is that NATO's most dangerous strength is not a single aircraft or ship. It is the network itself. And that network does not need one radar to stay in control. Then the Arctic intervenes. A violent blast of 100-knot wind shear slams into Foxtrot 7, throwing the P-8A off its flight path. For 12 long seconds, the APY-10 radar loses its lock on the Beret-class submarine. The tactical display flattens. This is the opening Moscow has been waiting for. Sensing the moment, the two Su-35s dive through the cloud deck with confidence, their radars blasting at full power to drown the American cockpit in electronic interference. This is no longer just an intercept. It is an attempt to sever the Poseidon from the wider fight. But in the GIUK gap, the U.S. Navy does not rely on one set of eyes. While the flankers celebrate what they believe is a successful disruption, the P-8A crew executes a calm, disciplined transition. They reduce active emissions and shift into a passive posture, effectively disappearing from the digital spotlight. They stop trying to look outward with radar and begin listening through the seabed network. The SOSUS grid has not missed a single pulse. The Boré is still there, its mechanical signature standing out clearly in the cold Atlantic like a beacon in darkness. The Russians believe they have created confusion. In reality, they have entered a layered trap, managed by a combat network operating faster than any pilot can think through in real time. The Poseidon does not respond with panic. It responds with coordination. Using a low probability of intercept burst transmission, Foxtrot 7 quietly sends the Boré's exact position to the Arleigh Burke destroyer waiting 50 miles away. This is off-board targeting at its most effective. The destroyer, still silent and nearly invisible, now holds a complete firing solution for its anti-submarine weapons. The Su-35 pilots remain focused on bullying the Poseidon, unaware that the network has already moved past them. Then comes the moment that changes the tone of the encounter. At 15:05, the Arleigh Burke briefly activates its Aegis radar for exactly 3 seconds. That short burst is enough. A sudden wall of energy lights up the Su-35 cockpit displays. Lock, lock, lock. In an instant, the pilots who believed they were controlling the encounter realize they are now fully exposed. No missile is launched, but the message is unmistakable. We see you, we can track you, and the balance has shifted. It is a psychological blow delivered with perfect timing. Below the surface, the Boré's captain feels the change as well. The passive cues from U.S. underwater systems are no longer searching broadly. They are following him with precision. The GIUK gap is no longer a route to freedom. It has become a trap. He is forced into a desperate escape profile, diving toward deeper Atlantic trenches to avoid the growing net around him. The Su-35s break away, their fuel reduced and their confidence shaken, finally realizing that every second spent harassing the P-8A was another second spent inside someone else's targeting picture. Foxtrot 7 stabilizes, drops a fresh line of sonobuoys, and resumes the hunt. Moscow does not lose a platform that day, but it loses something even bigger: control of the gateway. NATO does not need to fire to make the point. It controls the silence. The Atlantic remains under Allied watch, and the Northern Fleet is reminded that in the Arctic, the most dangerous ghosts may be the ones carrying an American flag on the tail. What happened in this GIUK gap scenario is not just about one tense encounter. It reveals a much deeper problem for Moscow. The humiliation of Russia's most advanced nuclear submarine was not the result of bad luck. It was a demonstration of a systems gap that Russia has struggled to close. Under Washington's renewed posture of strength, the U.S. Navy has shifted from observation to dominance. To understand why the Boré-class submarine and its fighter escort failed, you have to understand the reality of modern Arctic competition. The Kremlin still uses its nuclear fleet as a symbol of power, a strategic hammer meant to offset weakness elsewhere. But the U.S. and its allies increasingly treat these high-value submarines like predators moving through a brightly lit tank. Washington is no longer focused on merely tracking Russian incursions. It is focused on stripping away their strategic value. Every mechanical heartbeat, every valve movement, every distinctive harmonic vibration from a Russian propeller is stored in a constantly updated digital library maintained by a defense ecosystem that has regained momentum. The P-8 Poseidon sensors are so refined that even a minor pump irregularity can become part of the tracking picture from long range. In the stillness of the deep ocean, a Russian acoustic signature can stand out far more than Moscow would like to admit. And while this scenario is a fictional high-stakes simulation of modern Arctic operations, the tactical logic behind it reflects the real advantage of integrated American and NATO systems. The true power is not found in one aircraft, one ship, or one sensor. It is found in network-centric warfare in a digital combat architecture Russia still cannot fully match. Moscow continues investing heavily in individual platforms like the Su-35 and the Borei-class hull, powerful systems on their own. But the United States and its allies have built something broader, a seamless combat brain. With Finland and Sweden now inside NATO, the Arctic map has changed even further. The region has become vastly more difficult for Russia to navigate without being observed. The SOSUS grid provides the ears. The P-8A provides the mobile coordination hub. The Arleigh Burke destroyers provide the precision strike option. Together, they create a layered system that can absorb disruption, adapt instantly, and turn pressure back on the other side. So when the flankers tried to push the Poseidon away, they were never truly confronting a single aircraft. They were testing an entire alliance-linked combat network, and that network had already seen the move before it happened. They were not up against a single aircraft or a lone warship. They were confronting a multi-billion-dollar, cloud-connected combat network that was already several moves ahead. Moscow's dependence on intimidation and raw pressure has collided with a digital barrier it cannot simply push through. Their doctrine assumes that by aggressively pressuring NATO reconnaissance assets, they can create safe corridors in the Arctic for their nuclear fleet. That assumption is collapsing. In the GIUK gap, every act of Russian aggression risks becoming a beacon that gives away even more than it protects. By pushing the Su-35s to activate their powerful radars, NATO did not just track the fighters in the sky. It used those emissions as part of a wider sensing picture, helping refine the location of the Borei-class submarine below through layered detection and cross-domain targeting. What looked like pressure from Moscow became usable data for the other side. Washington's message is unmistakably cold and direct. The period of Russian gray zone advantage has not simply faded. It has been turned against them. Those Russian pilots did not just come up short in their mission. They handed the U.S. Navy a valuable stream of real-world signal intelligence, giving NATO more material to sharpen its systems and improve future tracking and response. The Borei-class submarine, built to carry enough firepower to alter the fate of nations, was reduced to a platform under pursuit by a network that never stops learning. This is more than a tactical success. It is also a political and military signal. It shows that in the dark waters of the Arctic, Russia may still carry formidable weapons, but the U.S. Navy and its allies control the sensing picture, the awareness, and ultimately, the initiative. The supposed hunter was never truly in control. It was a target waiting for the network to tighten the net. Do you think the U.S. Navy's technological edge remains the ultimate deterrent in the Arctic? If you respect the silent crews standing watch over the GIUK gap while most of the world sleeps, drop Arctic Shield in the comments. Support like that helps the channel keep bringing you intense strategic briefings like this one. And if you want more naval analysis and mission-focused stories, subscribe to Navy Vector and enable notifications so you never miss what comes next. The board is set, the sensors are alive, and we'll see you on the next deck.